my name is Macy. Welcome back to my book club. I wanted to talk about a couple of books that I've read recently and tell you my uneducated thoughts. I recently read House of Earth and Blood and House of Sky and Breath, the Crescent City volumes 1 and 2. I don't know if they're volumes, actually. Books 1 and 2 by Sarah J. Maas. I have the Barnes & Noble special edition paperbacks that the artwork is so beautiful on. And the reason I wanted to talk about these books and the reason I read them so recently is because the third book is coming out January 30th. I'm really excited, but these are the books that I want to talk about. These books are kind of the last to read in sort of a 15-book world, I guess you'd say. If you've been on Book Talk or on Book YouTube lately, I'm sure you've heard about Sarah J. Maas's sort of MCU type crossover-y beautiful mess that she's creating. These are the last two books that I have had to read of Sarah J. Maas. I started with the ACOTAR series and then into Throne of Glass, and sort of these came last, which was recommended by many people that I follow on Book Talk, and I get why these were recommended to be read last. First two books in the Crescent City series, her third series, and the world building in these books is a lot more complex than I've experienced in the other two series, and I'm sure that you've heard that talked about a ton, but boy, were they right. These books have also sort of been connected to Disney's Zootopia, which I also see, but to give you a little bit of a plot breakdown that's really simple without spoilers, is Bryce Quinlan is a half-human, half-fae woman, and this book is set in a modern city as opposed to the previous two series that I mentioned, and a murder happens and Bryce gets put on this case to figure out what's happening in the city. Book 2 is about so a bunch of drama happens in the first book that I don't really want to mention without spoiling, and book 2 is sort of like Hunt, Athalar, the Umbra Mortis, and God Among Men, if you will. And Bryce Quinlan are trying to lay low. Obviously they can't, or the book wouldn't be this thick. They get into troubles and sort of into a civil war, I think. I created a pros and cons list of these books, and let's start with the cons. Cons: the world building for the first 100 pages of the first Crescent City book is really hard to kind of grasp and understand. And I knew that going into the book, which I think really helped me get through it, because I know that I'm not alone in being so confused. The second con is I just put complex. I feel like you're getting dropped into the middle of this world, and with Sarah J. Maas's other series, you kind of grow with the book and the world building. And these books, you just better keep up. And another con is there's just so many people and bits of information to keep track of that was a little hard for me. You will jump, maybe not from perspective to perspective, but from storyline to storyline, which I should have known better from the previous series, but it just felt pretty difficult for me for a while until I understood what was going on. Pros: Bryce Quinlan. I put Bryce Quinlan, baby. She rocks. Sarah J. Maas really gets how to write an amazing female protagonist that just makes you proud to be a woman, you know? Second pro is sexy, powerful men. Need I say more? 3 is the plot twist at the end of Sky and Breath. It made all of the difficult mental work that I had to do so worth it. And I don't know how I never had anything spoiled. I just knew that the last few pages of the second book were mind-blowing. I'd never had it spoiled. I filmed my reaction reading it, which we'll put in the video probably after this. That's crazy. And also a big pro is just like the found family aspect, like finding people that are so important to you and creating those relationships when members of your family suck, or when your whole family sucks, or when you get disowned by your family, or all of that. Just finding people that are important to you and like leaning on them when times get really hard. There's so much of that, and not only these books, I mean her whole series, all of the series, but every time it's just so beautiful and so reassuring to watch. I'm gonna start my own rating system, and this will be the first time that I use this system. And it's not like a system, it's just instead of rating them by stars, I'm gonna rate them by pine cones, because my dog's name is Pinecone and I think it would be more fun. So I'm gonna rate them separately. Crescent City 1, House of Earth and Blood, I'm gonna rate 4 pine cones. It went down a whole pine cone just because it was really difficult to get into it, and the only reason that I kept going is because of all of the brave people that fought through it before me and told the world that yes, it's difficult, but it's worth it, like keep going. I also have a terrible thing in me that I do not DNF books. I've only DNF'd one book in my whole life, and maybe we'll talk about it in another video, but I would have finished it if it killed me. So it went down a whole pine cone just because of it was a pretty rocky start, but it's a pretty good book. I'm also a generous rater, I'm gonna be honest. The second book, Crescent City 2, House of Sky and Breath. I'm rating House of Sky and Breath 4 pine cones as well. There were also parts of this book that were like a slog for me to get through compared to how I felt about the Throne of Glass series and ACOTAR series. But this half of the book, this half, could be 5 pine cones on its own. I mean, the last 4 pages could almost persuade me to bump it up a full pine cone because it didn't disappoint. But yeah, so the series as a whole is 4 pine cones so far. Warning! I really need to talk about some spoilers, and I don't want to be the one to spoil it for you, so skip, because I need to talk about it. First spoiler is like in the first couple of pages. I just was not expecting, I didn't know anything about these books really or what they were. I just knew they were more modern than the other series were, like in times. I was kind of shocked when Danica died. And I get that that's the whole point of the book, is like that's the death. You figure out what's going on. These people are being ripped apart, blah, blah, blah. I thought that it was gonna be like Danica and Bryce taking on the world. Another really like devastating moment was when Lahaba sacrificed herself to save her friend, and like having such a shitty life, like being in captivity and like having someone that's so important to you. I might cry that you would sacrifice your life for, and just like going through that is really rough. The next spoilers are in this book. I really loved just the turn of the Asteri and like Rigelus like feeding on Second Light and taking the drop, and like just turning such like a supposedly special important thing in the Crescent City people's lives, and also that they like are taking people from other planets and brought them all here just to better themselves basically and like sustain their own life force was crazy. And then the last couple of pages, I knew exactly when Bryce went through the little portal thing and was on grass, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're coming. Like my favorite people are coming. She's gonna be in one of the other realms. And when she said, like, the last page, she talks about, I recognize this man, he looks just like Rune, which I never connected that Rune's features and Rhysand's features are the same. I can't wait to see like what that means, but I like literally was gobsmacked when they're like, hello, I'm Rhysand. I went, and my husband Manny was cooking and he was like trying to talk to me, and I was like, I can't talk right now. I'm really, really excited to see how ACOTAR gets pulled into the third book. It also is a big talking point in the book talk community right now about how Aylin's sword is shown on like the chapter headings. I just am like chomping at the bit and like foaming at the mouth to see how they get pulled into it. But I swear to God, if Aylin or Rowan or Rhys or Feyre or any of like my favorite people, I know I just named like the main two couples, but I love so many of the other people. I just can't handle anybody dying that I like really, really love, because I thought that we made it through. So I'm excited to see in the third book where like how they spin together. I also just can't believe that someone's brain can connect, like it's years of planning and like dropping hints. So if you have any theories before the book comes out on January 30th, I need to talk about it with someone, because not any of my very close reading friends have read the books yet. So I'm just like spiraling in my own head, and I'm not very good at like putting two and two together. So I need someone to do it for me and tell me about it so we can talk about it. Something that I will say about Crescent City is if you are new to fantasy, which I am very new to fantasy, I wouldn't start here. If you're new to the Sarah J. Maas universe, I wouldn't start here because of the world building is complex. The things that they talk about in this book, I would recommend just reading the other series first. So if you want a reading order, which I'm sure you've heard from everybody under the sun, but let's hear it from me. I would read ACOTAR first, all of the books, ACOTAR, because I can't mix the series. I would get too lost with all of the characters. I would start with ACOTAR, then I would read Throne of Glass, then I would read Crescent City. And I'll talk about Throne of Glass and ACOTAR probably in their own videos because there's so much to talk about. But I don't want the beauty of Crescent City to get lost because it is so complex. Let me say, those are my thoughts on these books. If you want to talk about them more, we totally can. Obviously, I'm jonesing too. But if you want to keep up with what I'm reading, I mentioned my Goodreads or my Storygraph. I don't know if those are actually my usernames, but I can put them in the bio below. Thank you for watching. If you have any recommendations or anything that you want my specific thoughts on, please comment below. I love guidance. If not, get ready. Okay, thanks.